Sometimes in life we just suffer. Sometimes it's from being totally withdrawn, or so much stress that we are totally anxious, or so tired that we are totally burnt out. But our current position is not our final destination. No, indeed. There's hope. So whether it's your personal life, your career, your relationship, your business, or your job, we say there's reason to believe again. And we present from Andy's personal development, the breakout room. It's the place for health, happiness, and prosperity. Stay tuned for more. Hi, and welcome to the Breakout Room. This is Andy, and we are live, and we are so happy to be back. Yes, we've been out for maybe just about 4 days or so. I had a little time out to re energize, recharge the battery, but come back again with much love and gusto and so much more goodies for you guys with regards to personal development, life lessons, you name it, the full works. Remember our watchwords: health, happiness, and prosperity. And today we have a guest who lends so much credence to our theme, and we just want to introduce him quickly into the program. His name is Dennis Crosby, a revolutionary in the field of marital recovery and men's personal development. Dennis is more than a coach. He's a beacon of hope, and oh, don't we need that so much more in the world today? For men who are navigating the challenging waters of marital crisis with a remarkable 80% success rate, Dennis has guided hundreds of men from the brink of divorce to reclaiming and transforming their relationships. Today's episode is, of course, entitled Masculine Feminine Dynamics Understanding the Balance with Dennis Crosby. Maybe it's the Mars and Venus phenomenon. I don't know. But I'm not the expert. Dennis is. So, welcome, Dennis Crosby, live in the breakout room. Here we go.
Andy, how's it going?
Wonderful. But so much more better now that you're live with us. We appreciate you and we thank you for being here with us on this program, this episode of the Breakout Room. Dennis, I've got so much fascinating stuff that I'm thinking about when I saw your information came across my desk. But I'm wondering, before you became this phenomenon with regards to helping the masculine man, and I use that phrase there intendedly, no pun intended,
Sure.
but helping men understand the profound difference that it takes for them to become responsible when it comes to the actions that they take with regards to marriage and relationship. Before you became this great contributor, making this impact, who was Dennis Crosby?
Great question. I think Dennis Crosby was the same as anybody else out there, which
Uh
is
huh.
somebody who was seeking to become the best version of himself. All right, I'm going to stop talking in third person now because that sounds weird. But I grew up really having that deep, not good enough conversation, right? That was my biggest fuel. And what eventually led me into personal development in the first place is I had this deep conversation that I just wasn't good enough. And I could never be good enough. Nothing I ever did felt good enough. I diminished everything that I did, right? I was always looking at others thinking how much better they were than me, how I couldn't do what they were doing, et cetera, et cetera. And that drove me into more than anything else in my life.
Wow. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
When we hear the term authentic man coach or authentic man coaching, What
Hmm.
do you want people to think of? What is the thought process that you want them to engage in when they hear that term?
Yeah, I think it's really simple because when you think authentic, it's a lot. There may be some pre-existing notions in your mind, but I look at it very simply. It's being who you want to be and creating what you want to create, right? And fundamentally, that's what we do is we help men be who they want to be and create what they want to create. And most of our clients are in some dark period of their life. I know you deal with people in crossroads, so we tend to
Yeah.
deal with people in darkness, right? In a
Okay.
dark place and a lot of pain. So particularly in marriage crises is where most of our clientele are. But you deal with addictions, you deal with stuck and trapped in their business, you deal with financial poverty, you deal with
Hmm.
prisons, like all those types of things are all places where men are stuck. And
Yeah.
we break them free of that so that they can be who they want to be, or you can even say who they're meant to be, and go out there and create the life that they want.
Wow. I get it. And I commend you for that. There's so many facets to what you're saying.
Mhm.
Now, I'm looking at also that aspect of the balance and the wholeness of what you intend a man to be or to become.
Mhm.
In the aspect of that development, within the aspect of that growth, is it possible that a man could have a relationship that is more detrimental to his well being and his sense of wellness in terms of all of his faculties rather than something that is contributing to his life?
So is the question, is it possible to have a toxic relationship? Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. One
yeah,
that's detrimental to your life, your health, your happiness, your
yeah.
mission, your purpose, 100%. A
Well,
lot of men find themselves in that situation. A lot of women find themselves in that situation.
yeah. Which leads me to the next question. How do you know then, Dennis? Or should you come to a point where it's time to say bye bye? It's been good, but hey, I can't do this anymore. We can't do this anymore. It's time to let go.
Yeah, are we talking about relationships or marriage? Because that,
Marriage. Let's deal with marriage first. The big thing first that so many people are actually struggling with, although sometimes they just don't want to admit it.
yeah, yeah, there's always a point of no return, right? And that happens for many reasons. And it's not, I think it's rarely because the people are fundamentally incompatible,
Ah,
right? Because especially if you've been married for 10 plus years, it's
uh-huh.
unlikely that you're fundamentally incompatible because you made it that far. You were originally attracted for a reason. What's more likely is that either one person, usually the man, has gotten super complacent in the marriage and the woman is feeling deeply disconnected. And when you combine those two things, you get a ton of different problems that show up as different symptoms in a marriage. But it really comes
Hmm.
down to those two things. So most marriages can be resolved by fixing the disconnection on
Yeah.
the woman and turning the man from complacent to proactive or from victim to leader or a whole slew of other transformations. But that's roughly how I look at it. But I feel most marriages can be saved if both people are willing, or if one person is willing to go first and do what needs to do so the other person can see the hope that the marriage can be saved and then step back in.
Yeah. How much then, Dennis, does career pursuits, personal development, things like that, one individual in the marriage deciding I need to do certain things for me. They have a bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain level of achievement they want to accomplish with regards to their careers, their educational level. But the
Mm-hmm.
other person on the other side is not so inclined.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do they make up the difference there? What's the dichotomy with that kind of challenge?
Yeah, so a couple different ways to look at it. I'm going to remove the outliers because
Uh-huh.
there's always the outliers of where it's just two people want such radically different things in their life that it becomes incompatible.
Yeah.
Right? There's always that possibility, but those truly are the outliers.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about in terms of the man's case and the woman's case, right? If it's the man wanting that, usually that isn't the problem, right?
Okay.
He's just not doing the work of bringing her with him and saying
Mm.
how this vision creates also what she wants too, right? So if you want to go out, start your own business, go achieve your life purpose, whatever it is, you also have to do the work of sharing that vision, sharing how she'll benefit from that vision, how it's going to be a net gain for
Yeah.
everyone in your life,
Okay. Okay.
right? So it's not just you running off and then being upset because she's not jumping on that bandwagon with you and supporting you, immediately becoming that cheerleader, right? Especially if she has her own issues around safety, security, and you're about to take all of your savings to put into this. Like that's going to be a struggle, right? And you have to acknowledge that that pursuit, there's going to be trade-offs to it. There's going to be impact to her. A lot of men who go off and do this, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who
Mm.
often did this,
Yeah.
and they didn't like she was carrying the emotional weight during that period, right? So she was cheering him on, but really she was struggling, right? Because
Yeah.
there was always ups and downs, always feeling insecure, not knowing where the money is coming from, all those, and to give him the space to go do it. But then when he turns around or hits a hard stride or some stuff like that, like he doesn't realize how hard it was for her. And then he gets upset that she doesn't have what's left emotionally to now support him during even harder times. Right. So it can get really complex really fast with that. So that's the man side. On the female side, which is quite rare from what I've seen, it's rare that I see a woman who now wants to go do something else, has this new purpose that creates conflict there. But what I will say is a lot of times women will invest in personal growth faster than men will. So as
Mm.
they're on new ideologies, new beliefs, new ways of wanting to see the world, wanting to level themselves up, and the man is so caught up in usually that provider space where he's like, I'm just focused on work, taking care of kids, make sure there's food on the table and all that, it can be really hard for her to feel that gap now between the perspectives. And it's the same thing, like in each situation, I'm being super general here,
Yeah.
right? But in that case, partially what needs to happen is she needs to start sharing this stuff with him, not from a place of, oh, you need to believe this. Like, I just found church and now you need to understand all this stuff. And what? But it's like
Uh-huh.
appreciating it, acknowledging
Yeah.
where his bandwidth is to take on those new things. Because likely the reason you can go do those things is because he's supporting some things that gives
Right.
you the reason for that. So
Yeah.
understand that the time he's doing that is going to make it hard for him to be open to the transformation you're going through. And this isn't always the case. Sometimes it's the opposite, right? But it's just let's just call it leadership at a whole. And
Ah.
when you are leading, when you're leading that part of the relationship, so let's say the growth and transformation part
Mm-hmm.
of the relationship, you
Yeah.
have to bring that person with you, right? You have to figure out how, and you have to acknowledge where they're at, their own barriers, their own resistance. Also give them time, right? It takes time to do these things too.
Right.
So that was a tangent,
Wonderful.
but there you go.
Yeah. 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 Wonderful. Thank you for sharing and being really honest about a serious challenge that many people face with regards to that aspect of marriage today. Now, in terms of, and you just mentioned something about the CEO role or the leadership role. There are many kinds of leaders that
Mhm.
exist in the world today, but I want to keep it really simple. Imagine this CEO that has the responsibility of, let's say, a Berkshire and Hathaway. That's a tremendous responsibility with regards to investment, stocks, bonds.
Mhm.
And he, at the same time, has to be a husband and a
Mhm.
father.
Mhm.
How does he define the role with being the CEO on one hand, the father on the other hand, and the
Mhm.
husband of a wife who does not want a CEO but needs a husband?
Mhm. Yeah, and That's a great question because I think a lot of men struggle. Like they're able to go out there and show up in the business world,
Right.
but when it comes to home, it's not so much.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is there's roughly about 9 areas of leadership. Business only requires you to show up in about a quarter of
Mm-hmm.
those areas. Your marriage and your family requires you to show up in all of them,
Right.
right? And usually it's more of the masculine area. So results. Business is all about results, right? So results, performance, competency. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big area. Vision, like having a vision for the future, all those types of things, right? Hiring, attracting, recruiting, all those kind of things. Those are primary skills when it comes to business. When you start adding in the family relationships, now you get into the softer skills, the connection, the communication. Well, business takes a lot of communication too, but different kind of communication, vulnerability, right? Being able to sit down, be present with your wife. Like business, you don't necessarily need to be present or cultivate the skill of being present. It helps, but it's not required,
Right.
right? In your marriage, it does require you to sit there.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a different set of skills that you have to cultivate. And most men, oh, people in general, but specifically
Yeah.
men, have a hard time taking a step back and realizing they need a different playbook and they need to put just as much energy as they put in their business into their family, right? Into their marriage, right? And once you figure that out and once you start making those applications, once you start cultivating those aspects of yourself, it does get easier. But there is some startup, like fatigue, right? There's some startup because you're learning new sets of skills. But just like you learn in business, you'll learn it here, and then you can start balancing between the two. You'll learn how to make it all work. But if you're finding yourself where you're in business, a business is successful, let's say Berkshire Hathaway, you can take a step back from there
Yeah.
and go cultivate those same skills. Go commit to being performing at that same level you're performing at your business with your family.
All right.
Right? It's just a
Yeah.
choice, right? You just have
Yeah.
to make a choice to want to perform at that same level in your family and say that this is a priority too.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Thank you for sharing, Dennis. We
Mhm.
love that. I've seen this on television, I've seen this in movies where husband and wife reach a crossroads, my
Mhm.
favorite place, and they decide this is not going to work anymore.
Mhm.
But they also decide because of the family, because of the children, we're going to stay together.
Yeah.
How safe is that? How healthy is that when they've already decided it's not going to work? What impact does that have on the children per se?
You know, I'm not a child psychologist. I don't
I hear
study
you.
children that are product of divorce, so I'll steer away from saying the impact, the like true impact
Mhm.
that it has on a child because I'm just not aware of
Yeah.
that. What I will say
Okay.
is that the children know there's a problem,
Mm. Yeah.
right? Is if you I don't know your family history, my history, like I knew when there were issues between my parents. Like it
Right.
was they didn't have to tell me about it. Like it was obvious,
Yeah.
right? So they are impacted. They do know. So the message that's being communicated when that choice is made is that we'll
Hmm.
stay together for you, but we'll sacrifice ourselves in the process,
Okay.
or we'll sacrifice our own purpose, happiness. And if that's a that goes down to your values, your personal values, and what you want to communicate down to your parents or to your kids. So my father, one of his biggest things was commitment.
Mm.
His core values was commitment. So that was never an option on the table because for himself and to also communicate that to us. So he feel perfectly fine sending us the message that you will stay in something even if you're not happy there because you made that commitment, because that's something he wants to pass down. Now,
Okay.
somebody else is like, you're like, for me, for my family, it's going to be creating your vision, creating the life that you want. Right. So I would have a hard time making that same choice that my father made
Yeah. Yeah.
because Yeah, so it just depends on the situation. I'm not going to say one is right and one is wrong. It's going to be there's so many factors into that. But I don't think it's a cut and dry kind of situation.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you for that. Now, your vision is to create the world's best men's development company.
Hmm.
And your mission is to help over 1 million men all over the world design the ultimate vision for their life, rise up and close the gap between the man they are today and the man required to fulfill that vision. I love this part. It's been said that hell is meeting the man that you could have become. We're going to get into that a little bit, but before we do that, how far are you, or have you gotten to that point where that impact that you're looking with regards to the vision and the mission has become or is becoming a reality? How far along are you in achieving that goal?
I feel like I'm just getting started, right? In terms of the actual direct implications of going out there, meeting men, working with men, coaching clients, all that to get to there. Now, there's obviously the butterfly effect, where if you help one, you help thousands.
Yes.
So I'm probably from a network effect on a universal level, well on my way
Okay.
to. But in terms
Wonderful.
of the way I envision doing it,
Yes.
like, it's
Yes.
just getting started, which is one of the beautiful parts of life, right?
Yes. Indeed. Wonderful. So it's been said that hell is meeting the man that you could have become. How many times have you had to actually deal with that as a reality for your clients? And what did you tell them? How did you help them to deal with that?
Yeah, I don't. That's an interesting question. I would say when most men find themselves in that situation, it's not like they're truly meeting the man that they could have become.
Mm,
Right? It's
hmm.
that they're getting an outcome that they feared would never happen, or they're
Wow.
getting themselves in a place that they never imagined they would be.
Okay.
And because they never imagined they'd be there, that implies they thought they were better than they were. They had this
Hmm.
false image of how confident they were, how strong they were, how well their life was going. They had this false image. And then these crises come up in our lives that just show us how false that image of our lives really were. And in that moment, we take a step back and we realize, well, if I created this, who am I really to be able to create this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that point, they realize that, oh man, I could be much better than this, right? Because if I created this and I need to create something better, that means I have to be able to get better. So there has to be a better version of me available. And now they're caught in that gap between who they are and this unfolding of who they realize they could be. Even if they're not clear on it, they just have a sense, internal sense that there's a better version of me out there. Like there's another level I can go, and they start that journey. Hopefully, some people don't. But ideally, they start that journey. And as you continue that journey, you keep seeing it further and further. But I don't think you get to that hell until the end, when you actually are at the end of your life and you look back and realize that, oh man, I could have done so much more, right? I could
Yeah.
have been so much more. And for me, that happened to be one of my deeper fears in life, right? So I don't want to experience that. God, God, do I not want to experience that? So that ends up driving me a lot. And I don't know, there's a lot of people who think that far out. It's more like, wow, if you don't, you're going to pay that price.
Yeah. Wow. A very close cutting image of that kind of reality. Most of us are not willing to face up to. I hear you, Dennis. We appreciate that.
Yeah, we have
So,
a poor relationship with death
yeah.
in our
Hmm.
society,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We have a very poor relationship with death.
Wow. So, at the end of the day, and I just want to switch gears a little bit, in
Mhm.
terms of mentorship or mentoring, do
Mhm.
you have that still voice, that person that you reach out to moments when you have your doubt yourself, your challenges, And you don't want them to tell you what to do, but you want them to help you
Mm,
make a decision that you know will be in your best interest. But you just need that still understanding, unbiased, unjudgeable voice
mhm,
that would lead you in a direction that you can make a proper decision. Is
mhm.
there that mentorship role in your life as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Mentors have played a huge part in my life, especially on the business side,
Right.
but also on the personal development. And some of them have been like true mentors that had no
Mm-hmm.
financial skin in the game. They were just there because they cared about me and they wanted to invest their energy into me as a human being. Those have been fewer for sure in my life. More often, they were people I invested financially in to guide me, to mentor me, to nurture me, either through a mentorship or a coaching relationship. Those tend to be the people who have supported me the most on my journey. And yeah, I'll be honest, sometimes I just tell them, tell me what to do because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm lost. Please just tell me what to do. Show me
Yeah.
how to pass this thing. And other times,
Yeah.
we do what we want to do. We want somebody just to tell us we're right.
Ah, there you go. Then
So
there's that. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, mentors have been a huge part of my life for sure.
Yeah. Wonderful. What is the legacy that you want people to remember the most about you, Dennis Crosby? What do you want them to think about when they reflect on what the impact that you have made in their lives?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that he gave it his all,
Mm,
fully lived,
yeah,
and went out there and created what he really wanted.
right.
Right. So he was authentically me. I would say that's probably the biggest piece.
Yeah, wonderful. Love it.
Yeah.
Are
I'm
you are you looking to?
curious.
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
curious. What's the answer to that question for you?
For me personally, it's about being able to look at my creator in the eye and have that confidence that I have done all that I can and some more to
Mm,
give him the greatest possible return on the investment he made by putting me here,
mm,
knowing that I had a purpose and an intent to fulfill. And I was absolutely clear about it. When people reflect, they must see that impact that I have made and understood that I did it not because of them
mm,
or because of me, but because I knew and I embraced and accepted my purpose. That's
mm.
it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, have you done any writings, Dennis? Any publications at all?
Back in the my mid 20s, I wrote a bunch of books on Amazon, particularly
Uh
around like
huh.
money management and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As I transitioned into really doing men's coaching and all that, I wrote I've written some downloadables and stuff like that for our audience around very niche topics, but nothing like a full on publication or anything like that. That's
Okay.
probably a next year thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Wonderful. So, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to do some color commentary. So just look at
Now
this
you're
and
asking,
you're
like,
gonna give me
please
some
give me a
feedback. Here we
chance.
go.
Let me show you that change. I've woken up. I've seen the light. This has been transformational. And yes, it has been. And it's probably happened before. You've probably been on this roller coaster where you change for a little bit, you stop. So of course she's skeptical. Of course she'll trust you. You have to earn that trust. When you show up, when you take responsibility, fully take responsibility, something shifts. You shift. You get your power back in the situation. You can move forward to go fix this without seeking reaction, without the anxiety, without the, oh, this has to happen, or without the fear, all that stuff. You can just move powerfully through this. The question is, are you willing to become that man? And the first step in becoming that man is taking 100% responsibility for the situation. Now you can go save your marriage. So make a choice. Are you going to own this? Are you going to take responsibility? Are you going to acknowledge that you created this? Or are you going to be a victim? I can tell you which one works. I can tell you which one doesn't. It's ultimately a choice. Do what you want.
Wow.
Mm. I was
Tell
not
us about it. It's
expecting.
deep. It's deep. It's deep. I love it. I love it. It's profound.
Mm.
Where it's coming from? Where is it coming from?
Yeah, my one of my core beliefs in life is around responsibility,
Yeah,
and that we are our most powerful versions of ourselves when we're taking 100% responsibility for our lives. Right?
right.
And that's not saying everything is our fault, but that is saying everything is of our own creation and contribution. And when we embrace that philosophy, when we look out into our world and see everything as a reflection of us, of our creation and what we contributed, then that puts us in the place of being a creator,
Yeah,
which, as we in the creator mindset, we'll call it, that is when we are at our most powerful. And then the opposite of that is the victim mindset, which is everything is happening to us, not
yeah,
coming from us,
yeah,
right? And the victim mindset is we know we look at a zero to 100 scale, right? Our victim is 0%. That's completely disempowered. You can do absolutely nothing. And then 100% is I create everything. So I can do everything, right? And wherever you choose to sit along that spectrum is the level of empowerment you're bringing to yourself. And it becomes progressively harder as you go up because it's hard to look out and be like, I created this. Look at the elections and be like, oh, I contributed to and created what we're seeing there. Looking at your
right.
neighborhood, looking at crime, looking at like those are more extreme versions of it. But the version of you who's like, oh, I and finds how you're contributing and creating that is the most powerful version of you.
Wow.
And I believe that is one of, if people could only do that thing, only shift that mindset, we live in a radically different world,
Yeah,
right? Your life would be radically different when you start taking responsibility for everything that's happened both to you and is currently present in your life.
wow. Yeah, I love that. Which brings me to this place. Let's imagine that a man who's been married for, say, 20 years, and I like keeping it real,
Mm-hmm.
practically, he has not been the leader in
Mm-hmm.
the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the concept of leadership here. It's not about being the boss,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about being the manager, just using the resources for a particular gain or a particular end,
Mm-hmm.
but rather it's understanding how you can lead, guide, nurture, develop, protect, provide, and even be a mentor in your marriage for your wife, particularly. And that flows and extends down into the family. But
Mm-hmm.
20 years has gone and he has not been the leader.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help him to get back on the track where he can embrace the reality of leadership and understand how important it is so that the rest of the marriage becomes much more fruitful and valuable?
Yeah.
And that instead trickles down to the rest of the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So great question. And I'm going to break that into two scenarios,
Uh huh.
right? There's a scenario where he hasn't been leading and the family situation is terrible, right? And then he hasn't been leading and the family situation is okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because those would be two very different scenarios.
Right.
So in the ones where the situation isn't good and like
Mm-hmm.
they're paycheck to paycheck, there's no
Yeah.
stability in the house, she can't rely on them, there's no trust between them, all those kind of things. The first thing to do is start producing results.
Mm.
Why you trust a leader who doesn't produce results?
Yeah.
So if you're paycheck to paycheck, you need to get out of being paycheck to paycheck, right? Whatever that entails, whether that's saving, whether that's reducing spending, whether that's finding ways to make more money, like whatever, you need to start producing results. And I use finances because that's the easy one for people to understand,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But if you're sickly, then stop being sickly. Go work out, get healthy, stuff like that. Like just start producing results so people can begin to have something to trust you to go do,
Yeah.
right? Leadership is a big component of leadership is trust, right? So they got to be able to trust you to do something. So you need to be able to start producing results in an area to be trusted in, right? So that's that scenario. Now, if we're dealing with one where the family is generally okay, maybe you guys have just been more partners, so even more neutral versus like the
Hmm.
masculine, more polarity type of
Yeah.
situation, then that's you stepping into that role. And one is taking responsibility of like, I am responsible for this family's health, this future, where they're going, how content my wife is, how who my children grow up to into, all those types of things. Taking responsibility for that, and then creating a vision and a direction of what you even want that to look like. Most of the
Wow.
issues we just have zero vision, right?
Yeah.
We're just going along the motions. We have things that maybe we'd like to do someday, type of thing, right? But we don't have a clear vision that we're actively working towards. And when you have that, that will start to shift everything because you will need to begin to align your life around that vision and start the process of becoming the man who can create that vision. And when you do that, now you'll start moving, shifting towards being a leader, right? So I would say we're talking about first step, that would be the
Hmm.
in both those scenarios.
Okay. Great. Thank you for sharing, Dennis. We appreciate that and we appreciate you. Guys, you need questions to be answered. You want comments to be made? Reach out to Dennis. He's on fire here. He is smoking. The episode is entitled Masculine Feminine Dynamics Understanding the Balance with Dennis Crosby. We're going to take a short commercial break. Our friends at fineradioguest.com is saying put your information into their directory. They'll promote you on all the social media platforms around the world and even give you a bump sometimes so that you can look good out there and attract people to the things that you do, make an impact, and bring more business to your place of competence. So stand by. We will be back in just under 30 seconds. FindRadioGuest.com, the place to click to find guests to interview for free. And if you're a radio show booker, podcaster, talk show host, or television producer, then this is the place to get podcasts and radio interviews or promote your books and products as a guest expert sponsor. FindRadioGuest.com. Check it out. Okay, great. So we are back live in the breakout room. Again, we thank our friends at fineradioguest.com for helping us remain buoyant and visible on all the social media platforms. So, Dennis, how does the future look for you and the work that you're doing? Are there any plans for further development, growth, expansion? New techniques, new styles. What does the future look like for the stuff that you are into right now?
Yeah, so we're always growing and evolving here. As I
Uh huh.
work with men, I get to test what works even better, how to get quicker, faster results with less amount of efforts, all
Right.
that fun stuff. And right now, we're really focused on men in marriage crisis because
Uh
I
huh.
believe that's been one of the areas that if we, like, my personal goal is to reduce the divorce rate in half, right, and make happy marriage like the new norm.
Yeah.
So as we move towards that, like the ripple effect of that, stopping a generational trauma, keeping families together, improving that societal structure there, and installing strong leaders into families. Like I believe, honestly, if I only did that, that would be incredible for myself.
Wow. Wow.
But once I have that firmly locked in, then I'll be moving into other areas. So we'll be addressing financial poverty. We'll be addressing addictions. We'll be dealing with the prison system, like across the board. Like I want rapid transformation across the world in key areas where men are suffering, where men find themselves in the darkness, to show them how to step out of that, how to go be that man that they know they can be on the inside, how to go out there and create that vision that they have for their lives, whether they realize there's a vision there or it needs to be uncovered, but how to go out there and create what they're here to create.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. If you had a megaphone and you could speak to roughly 8 billion persons, and the focus is on men being responsible for keeping the family, the marriage together,
Mhm.
It's just this one opportunity to have. What would you say to them, Dennis?
I think in that scenario, you're hitting me with some interesting questions. I say megaphone, 8 billion people. I say the message would be you're capable of more than you know.
Ah, wow. I mean, that really sounds simple, but it's so profound. And I guess it's one that would help people to just for a moment sit back and think, wait a minute, I can do more than this. I can be more than this. And I think that's a very profound message that people need to realize today. And there's so many things that I see that people feel that are barriers and boundaries and limitations, and they don't realize, Dennis, it's really all about them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I admire Kobe Bryant, man. The black member mentality, which he
Yeah.
developed from the age of 6, man. He knew exactly what he wanted to do,
Yeah.
and he worked for the best part of his life developing how he wanted to do it his way. And look at the
Mm-hmm.
legacy, the story that the man left captivated so many people. But
Yeah. Really valuable.
sometimes people look at, yeah, sometimes people look at that, Dennis, and thinking, whew, how the heck can I accomplish all of that? And they don't realize it's the simple things that counts, that makes a difference. So I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna
You might.
give you the opportunity. Sure.
Yeah.
Go
I would
ahead.
say that Kobe had a very clear vision of wanting to
That's
be
right.
the best ever played the game.
That's right.
And
That's
that is
right.
a very, very lofty vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially when we look out there, especially on social media, especially with the business influencer culture that we have here, we
Yeah.
think our vision has to matter. It has to be something big. And that's just
Mm.
true, right? If your vision is to have, let's say, the American dream, happy family, kids, white picket fence, own your own home, or something like that,
Yeah.
that is fine because maybe where you grew up and your lifestyle, that is akin to somebody
Yes.
becoming the best in the world, right?
Yeah.
Never, never judge yourself for your vision.
Right.
And chances
I
are,
love
as
that.
you move towards that thing that you want, you will begin to be able to see even further than that. So
Right.
the visions are always evolving. It's very rare, so very rare. I'm not even to that place where somebody has that thing as clear as like Kobe, right?
Yeah.
Where he has so clear that I want to invest, but based on his what he was working on, he needed to have it at an early age because a
Yes.
basketball
Yes.
player's career span is so short, and you have to start developing early. So I think
Mm-hmm.
the for him have to be able to fulfill that vision, he had to have that clarity at an early age. It was a requirement.
That's right. That's
But
right.
for most, we're not dealing with that kind of landscape in our life. So we have space. So it usually comes later in life. Very rare it comes that early and that clear.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So Dennis, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to tell people. And by the way, it seems as though we have a shy audience today. That's all right. I know we're making an impact still, and we thank you guys for your continued support and your commitment. I'm gonna give Dennis the opportunity to. I'm gonna put some stuff out on the screen here. How you can make contact with him for his services, his expertise, and to generally feed off his experience for the stuff that he's doing for men all over the world. So tell them, Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a man suffering in a marriage crisis and she's saying anywhere from "I love you, but I'm not in love with you" to "I want to leave," then feel free to reach out for support. We have tons of free courses, guides, tools to help you save your marriage, regardless of your scenario, regardless of if she wants to work on it or not. And you're doing this on your own, at least in the beginning. And I'm just here about helping. So feel free to reach out. You can either take advantage of all of our free stuff or you can come and engage into getting some direct support through our coaching programs.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. The key
Yeah.
word there is free, folks. You've been hearing from Dennis Crosby, the man who is dealing with the masculine and the feminine dynamics, working with men everywhere, helping them to rise up and take the responsibility of leadership so that they can do so much more for their marriage and, of course, by extension, their families. We want to thank you for your continued commitment and your support to this program. And remember our three watchwords: health, happiness, and prosperity. And as Dennis said, always find yourself with the mindset that you can do more than you are actually doing now. You just have to find a way to make that happen so that it can become a reality for you. We thank you for your continued commitment and your support. And as we leave, we say, so long, Godspeed, God bless. Shalom, namaste. Bye for now, guys. Until next time, take care of yourselves and be good. Bye.
We good?